Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today I'm talking about carb backloading, a way of applying a cyclical ketogenic diet in order to help improve your fat burning and to help improve your lean body tissue, your sleep quality, a lot of different benefits to this approach. And really, I'm going to be talking about carb backloading and also calorie backloading. And so really, the foundation, I didn't come up with this idea of carb backloading. That's been out there now for some time. There's probably a lot of YouTube videos on it. But basically, this idea can be incorporated into a ketogenic diet. And I think you can get incredible benefits from doing it. And so step one is either fast or eat a low-calorie keto-style nutrition plan during the day. So you're under eating during the day. Step two is you exercise with light cardio in the morning. So you do some sort of movement in the morning. It's really good for your hormones, really good for your body. And you do resistance training, so some sort of strength training in the afternoon before your dinner feast. Okay, now as you can see there, the training isn't necessary, but will improve fat burning and muscle development. Obviously, you're depleting your glycogen when you train heavy, or when you just train in general. When you're exercising, you're depleting your glycogen. So your cells are more hungry for glucose. They're a lot more insulin sensitive. In fact, you don't even need much insulin after an intense workout because the GLUT4 receptors on the cells are more active. And so then you can feast on healthy carbs, proteins, and fats from 5 to 7 p.m. at night. I don't recommend eating, basically you should stop eating about 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. So 5 to 7 is usually a good time there. And so that's typically what you want to do. If you're eating too close to bed, it's going to affect your deep sleep and it's going to affect your ability to burn fat. So that's not what we want to do. And this really mimics the feast and famine cycle of our ancestors. And so there's other programs out there like the Warrior Diet, for example, which was an introduction to me into this whole concept. And it was life transforming for me because it was this idea that you could be so incredibly productive like ancient warriors when you undereat or eat lower amount of calories during the day and very light and easy foods to digest, and then eat your larger meal in the evening. And in a sense, take more time, be in a more relaxed state. You've done your stressful activities during the day, you're in a more relaxed state in the evening, you eat your larger meal then. And that's the Warrior Diet. And the carb and calorie backloading really works with that. And so one of the mechanisms here is really working with our hormonal system. And so we know that, for example, when we start triggering our insulin levels, like naturally glucagon is higher in the morning, which is going to raise our blood sugar, okay? When we start eating a lot of food, particularly carbohydrate foods in the morning, we blunt glucagon, okay? And then we increase insulin. And insulin's a fat storage hormone, okay? And so we actually want to reduce insulin throughout the day. And then actually we can basically prime insulin a little bit more in the evening. And so that's really the idea of this carb backloading. So when we look at our human glycogen tank, and glycogen is basically the stored sugar in our liver and also in our muscles. So we need that because the liver, number one, does not run off ketones. The liver needs sugar, it needs glucose. So the liver absolutely needs this as a fuel source. So it has to have this kind of reserve. Muscle cells can run off of ketones. That's a great thing. However, if we're doing very intense exercise, we're not going to be able to produce enough energy from the ketones quick enough. So we need to have a storage of glucose as well in there. So that way we can adapt to stress quickly, perform well when we're exercising at a high intensity. That's really important. You can see the capacity of the glycogen tanks are 100 grams of glycogen in the liver, about 400 in our muscles. Okay, and so basically once we fill those up, then we're going to start, insulin's going to trigger the body to start storing fat. And this is one of the reasons why we don't want insulin up in the morning, because we actually want to be breaking down our glycogen throughout the day. And so when we follow a ketogenic approach or we fast throughout the day, we are going to be breaking down, metabolizing this glycogen and also breaking down stored body fat. And that's what we want, okay? We want these fat burning effects. If we eat a big breakfast, okay, even if it's a keto breakfast, okay, if it's big, if it's a very large breakfast, or if we are, obviously having a high carbohydrate meal, we're going to increase our insulin to a certain degree. And so that can blunt the effects or basically stop our body from breaking down the glycogen. So this is why I'm a huge fan of either eating very light, maybe like a fat-fueled coffee or fat-fueled matcha green tea or something along those lines, okay, in the mornings, because you may provide a little bit of easy fats that are easy to convert into ketones, which can be really helpful. But for the most part, your body will run off of this glycogen. It will be breaking down glycogen, which is really key. We want a continual process of breaking down and building up glycogen. And that will help stimulate more of our own body fat being burned. So we burn our body fat more effectively when we keep insulin down and we deplete the glycogen tank. We hit a certain threshold. We don't actually deplete the whole thing, but we do hit a certain threshold. Also, on top of that, high-intensity exercise really, really helps with this, okay? So doing some sort of high-intensity exercise or just really moving in general, like going out, taking a walk like I did this morning is really helpful. In fact, after this video, it's about midday, I'm gonna go and I haven't eaten anything. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work out real intensely, okay? High-intensity strength training workout. Then after that, I'll break my fast with a good keto protein shake, something that's not gonna really spike my insulin, okay, but still I'll get, you know, some level of insulin and also lots of healthy fats and protein and nutrients to support recovery from that workout. But in general, you want to undereat throughout the day, and then you eat a little bit larger meal in the late afternoon, evening. And so cortisol is going to be elevated in the morning, and this actually gives us morning energy. And so cortisol basically is a catabolic hormone. It's a stress hormone, gives us energy, but it also breaks down glycogen, okay? So it actually triggers the body. Cortisol will be up, insulin's down in the morning. We're breaking down glycogen to increase our blood glucose. It also will help break down body fat. So when we get the right amount of cortisol at the right time, it's very important for burning fat. If you are not producing cortisol, okay, there's a condition called, what's the condition? It's slipping my mind right now, but there's a condition that where basically you're not producing cortisol, and these individuals have basically a belly fat. So they've got this kind of lump around their belly because, again, they're not producing cortisol, and cortisol is necessary for burning fat. Okay, we've also, it will break down bone. Okay, so it's necessary really for healing and repair. However, if we have it elevated for a long period of time, it's going to decrease amino acid uptake. It's going to counteract insulin, so it actually helps boost up glucagon, right, which is another part of increasing liver glucose generation or glycogen production, but it will reduce bone as well. So we don't want chronically high cortisol, but having normalized cortisol is important, okay? And so looking over here, we're looking at the thyroid now. So you've got the hypothalamus, which sends a signal to the pituitary gland, okay? And it tells the pituitary gland to produce thyroid stimulating hormone. And thyroid stimulating hormone comes out, tells the thyroid to produce thyroid hormone. And most of the thyroid hormone that's produced by the thyroid is in an inactive form called T4, okay? And T4 needs to be activated, needs to be converted by this 5-deiodinase enzyme into active T3. And so the way that it is converted is through basically through the liver and through the gut. And so things that cause too low of an insulin level, okay, like prolonged caloric restriction, prolonged fasting, prolonged state of nutritional ketosis, these can cause too low of an insulin, so we don't get a good conversion from T4 to active T3. Okay, so that's important to look at. So we want to make sure that we're getting this good. We need to have, in a sense, the right amount of insulin. Too low of insulin, we're not going to get the right conversion from T4 to T3. Too high of an insulin level, and we're going to end up with chronic inflammation that's also going to blunt our T4 to T3 conversion. So very important to understand. And so benefits of carb backloading, and again, when I think about this carb backloading, it's more of like a feast or famine ancestral health strategy. So most people that do this, and if they do it the right way that I'm going to show you, will notice better energy, mental clarity, enhanced fat burning, improved exercise performance, and better sleep quality. And so foods that help you sleep, oftentimes, some meals can be better when they do have a little bit of carbohydrates for people who have trouble sleeping. So not a whole lot, but a little bit of lower glycemic, more nutrient-dense carbohydrates. You can see sweet potatoes, maybe some berries, maybe some carrots, beets, things like that. That can be helpful. And then we definitely need protein and fat-rich foods. So grass-fed butter. You can see a salad with olives and avocado on it. You can see grass-fed beef or some sort of healthy, high-quality meat product. We want these fats to help keep us satiated, but also the carbs can help with a little bit of serotonin release. Okay, so again, if you're not having trouble sleeping, you've been in ketosis for a long period of time, that's great. Okay, you don't necessarily need these things. However, if you're struggling with it, you may want to carb cycle with a little bit of carb backloading. Okay, there's scientific benefits of this. It's been shown in studies, and I go through it in the article that I wrote that accompanies this video, that it helps preserve muscle mass. It increases fat loss. You get less hungry and you have less cravings, lower levels of inflammation, balanced blood sugar, improved lipid ranges. So they've done several studies that have shown this. And so here's the way that I teach to do it. Okay, so my first step is, hey, let's get into ketosis. So let's do a strict ketogenic diet for roughly 10 days. Okay, get into a state of nutritional ketosis where your body has ketone levels above 0.5 millimoles. Okay, so that's kind of what you're looking at. And then you try to do a carb refeed in the evening on the 10th day. And I'll go through what that actually looks like, what that means. Step 3 is you repeat that process and you customize it to your individual carb tolerance. So everybody's going to have a unique carb tolerance. Some people are going to be able to handle a little bit more carbs and then bounce back the next day and get right back into ketosis. Other people, if they have some carbs, it takes them a month to get back into ketosis. For those people, we really wouldn't want to do the carb refeed if you're very insulin resistant, or if you did do it, it would be very rare, like once a month, once every 2 months, something along those lines. So you got to customize this process to yourself. There's not really a cookie cutter method, but doing it in general, I'll tell people try starting it with doing it, with every 10th day as a carb cycle is one approach that you could do. So step number 1 is first 10 days, you do a strict ketogenic diet. So you stick with the calorie macros, which are typically going to be between 60 to 80% fat, 15 to 30% protein, and roughly 5% carbs. Okay, that doesn't include fiber, so that would be net carbs. You eat lighter during the day, you have a larger meal in the early evening. So you find the ratio that works best for you. If you're very active, you probably need more protein. So it'd be more like 70% or 65 to 70% fat, 25 or 30% protein, 5% carbs. If you're not very active, you're more sedentary, then you want higher fat, lower protein. So it'd be more like 80% fat, 15% protein, or maybe 75% fat. You probably get away with that. 75% fat, 20% protein, 5% carbs if you're very sedentary. So you figure out what works best for you there. Get into ketosis, okay? Then step number 2 is you do a carb refeed on the 10th day, okay? So again, have a workout in the late afternoon, enjoy a higher carb meal in the evening. So it's best if you do a workout, okay? Even if, you're for whatever reason, maybe you have a health condition that's not allowing you to work out, go for a walk, go out, just get out and be active. Now, most nutrient-dense carb sources to use would be things like beets, beans or legumes, berries, cassava can be really good. A lot of good products out there with cassava, tapioca, carrots, different fruit, fruit that you would enjoy, pumpkin, sweet potato. So these would be better sources. Now, I recommend only about 20 to 80 grams of carbs from these sources in the evening. Now, if you are very carb tolerant, meaning you can handle carbs, okay, you've eaten 100, 150 carbs, net carbs a day and bounce right back into ketosis the next day, okay, if that's you, then you can handle, upwards of that 80, maybe even more, maybe up to 100, 150 grams on that 10th day in the evening. And that may be because you're highly active. Maybe you are a high-level athlete or something like that. If you're very insulin resistant, then you certainly wouldn't want more than 20 grams of carbs. So you may not even add any of these. Or if you did, it might be like, a quarter cup of carrots or something along those lines. So it wouldn't be much, it'd be a very small amount. because your body's insulin resistant. You can't handle a whole lot of carbs. So you got to find the ratio that you feel like is going to work best for you. Okay. For me, I typically will do about 50 grams. 50 grams around my threshold. I am highly active, but my body tends to, not be great with carbs. So one of the reasons why I do a ketogenic diet. So if I cycle out, I'm usually doing something like 50 grams. Okay, maybe up to 60 to 80 grams, but typically not. Typically it's lower dose. What does that look like? It's like a sweet potato, it's like a half a cup of berries or something along those lines. Okay, so I'm not doing a whole lot, and I think that will work well. And then step number 3 would be customize your carb cycling strategy. Might be once per week. Okay, so you got to see how your body bounces back. Were you able to get back into ketosis? How'd you feel the next day? So for me, it's like if I carb cycle and then I have trouble, like I feel hypoglycemic in the middle of the morning the next day, if I'm trying to fast the next day and I'm having trouble with it, then I either had too many carbs or I may have carb cycled too often. Okay, so maybe I did it twice in a week and that just was too much for my body. So I lost my fat adaptation. So you want to experiment, find the carb refeed cycle that works best for you. I explain this in a lot more detail in the article, so you can check that out. Okay, and you find out what works best for you. And then this is nice. It gives you some freedom because you don't have to stay so carb restricted. So if you're like, hey, you know what? I actually do well when I can carb cycle, every 10 to 14 days, then great. You can schedule those things out. You can schedule them around family times, around parties, holidays, things like that. So you can enjoy some of these healthier carbs, do the carb backloading and, feel the benefits. Like I feel like I have more muscle when I do it. Like my glycogen stores, they bring in a lot more water into the muscles. So I actually feel more primed, more muscular. I feel really good, really strong in the gym when I do it. And, for me, my body's able to handle it typically, once a week, although I usually will do more like every 10 to 14 days. Okay. Somewhere in that schedule. I think if I'm doing it too often, it just doesn't work out very well. I don't feel as good. So you got to find out what works best for you. And again, this isn't something you have to do. I'm not here saying in order for your thyroid to work, you've got to carb cycle. That's not true. There's a lot of people that have done keto very successfully for a very long time and without carb cycling, and their thyroid's doing great. So their thyroid hormone production is right where it needs to be. Their energy is great. Brain function is great. So not everybody needs to carb cycle, but it can be a very healthy strategy for many individuals. Some individuals do better when they do some level of carb cycling. So you got to find what works best for you. And that's really, what I want you guys to get out of this video. Hopefully this is helpful. It gives you some strategies, ways to get started with this. Okay. Now I want you to know that if you were to look up carb backloading, okay, traditional carb backloading that's out there will tell you to do like 100 to 200 plus grams of net carbs. Whereas in my approach, I call it the keto metabolic approach, it's 20 to 80 grams. Okay. So it's a lot less than what's being taught out there. Okay. I find that 100, 200 plus grams, unless you are a high level athlete, extremely active, like super, super active, it's gonna be really hard for you to get back into ketosis the next day. Fasting can be tough. So you might have more trouble with that. Whereas you stay in that 20 to 80 grams and listen to your body, then I think you'll do a lot better with that. So you'll find that getting back into ketosis is not as hard and you should feel better overall. So one caveat there, in general, the older and the less muscle mass you have, okay? So if you don't have a lot of muscle mass on your body, then you're not gonna be able to have a very good carb tolerance. You're not gonna be able to handle as much carbs. So better to start lower, okay? Start with a lower amount. If you're younger and you have a lot of muscle mass, okay, you probably can handle more carbohydrates. So you got to just take that into consideration. So hopefully this was a helpful video for you. I would love to hear your questions, your comments in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, would love for you to subscribe. We have a lot of great trainings just like this that we'll be doing throughout the year. And I would love to have you as part of our community. So hopefully I was helpful for everybody. Be blessed, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.